Welcome to the Art and Science of Complex Sales, proudly presented by Membrain. This podcast is your gateway to mastering the craft of modern selling. If you're passionate about growth, impact, and unlocking full potential in sales and revenue, you're in the right place. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And now let's get started with today's guest. Hey everybody, today I get to talk with Sebastian Karlsson, a dear friend and colleague, and the top performing rep in Membrain's history. So a top sales executive out there. Lots to learn from this one. Let's get started with Seb. Seb, welcome to the show.
Oh, hey.
Hey man, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
I'm wonderful. We've been talking about doing this for a little while, and I am excited to have you on the show. I mean, we've worked together long enough. We might as well do some fun stuff and get it out there.
Absolutely. It's Friday afternoon in Sweden, so let's have some fun.
In Sweden. Sweden. Well, you spent some time in both the U.S. and Sweden. It's different world over there.
It is. I lived in Georgia, in Valdosta for, was it five or 6 months? You know, look at my skin. I'm like the palest guy you'll ever meet. And I went there and it was like 33 degrees Celsius. And I don't know what that translates to, but it's was in the 90s. Hot. Yeah, probably. It was too hot for me. And it sucked not having a car there. You know, small little city, you need a car everywhere. And I was a student. Yeah, it was fun, but at the same time,
you got a taste. You got a taste for mayonnaise and biscuits and gravy, right?
Yeah, and orange chicken. Have you been at Panda Express? That's some good stuff.
There you go. I love myself some orange chicken. Not Panda Express, though. I no shade on Panda Express, but well, hey, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. And you have to answer the question that everybody answers on the first time. Seb, you've been in sales for quite a while now, but how do you define sales? What does sales mean to you?
I've listened to you asking that question to so many people, but I've never really given it a real thought. So I just said, hey, let's go ahead and see what I come up with. But for me, sales is all about helping. If I can't help, I'm going to recommend them somewhere else. Because if we don't provide a solution, someone else will. So that's kind of my first part of it. But the other one is bridging a gap between where they are and where they want to be. And that gap can be within many different buckets, often revenue in the conversations that I have. But it's bridging a gap between where they are and where they want to be.
Nice. And you've dealt with sales as part of your gig. You deal with sales experts and VPs of sales and CEOs all the time. So what are some of the challenges? What are some of the gaps that they're facing today in actually executing, their revenue plans?
Often it comes down to systemization of how they run kind of their sales operations, how they run pipelines, how they grow their customers, how they qualify leads that comes in through different sources, inbound, outbound, events, whatever. It's systemization of kind of how you do all these kind of processes. When you boil it down, often there's a lack of structure around how they go about these things. And I often pressure test and do some line of questioning there to find out how big of a problem is. Mm-hmm. Not following those steps that you mentioned were so important. What happens when you don't?
Let's dive into this idea let's use your engineering brain and your thesis brain. Let's dive in. Why is it so important that you actually engage and create a process, at least at a minimum, whether that be a 3-step process or a 47-step process? What are some of the basics around why that's really important?
I think the basics around it is that there are key components that will either make you win or lose an opportunity. And if you have conversations with the sales organization and sit down and ask, what are the things that you always do? You're going to find a lot of things, but that can also be boiled down to the maybe more important things. And we can agree that, hey, maybe these 10 things are things we always should do. Common things that I talk with sales leaders about on a weekly basis is understanding stakeholders, who needs to be involved, when, where, why, what's their agenda, what's their take on these kind of solutions or services that we're offering, why is it important to them, pain points that they have with their current setup and the current state that they're in, which is often why someone initiates a conversation with us, where they want to be, what's the sense of urgency, is there a sense of urgency, or are they just saying, like, you need to go kind of below the surface a little bit. Try to go a little bit deeper than just surface level to really understand, is it an issue? What makes it an issue? And try to kind of understand and help them quantify, is it a problem? If you compare that to the other thing that you mentioned, like which one would you solve first? Trying to really get to the bottom, and don't be satisfied until you've gotten all the problems out, because there and then you can prioritize with them.
Yeah, so I mean, you just defined a core sales process. You just defined it in 30 seconds there. Those of you that are out there that are saying, how do you define a sales process? Well, maybe it's as easy as check, we're having a discovery meeting. Check, do we have all the decision makers in the room? Have we verified that we have all the decision makers in the room when we're having that meeting? Check, discovery, what does that look like? Did we go deep? Did we go shallow? Understanding those, what did we present? I mean, in whiteboarding that type of stuff out and then getting that down so you can decide whether or not you want to hit repeat on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then once you hit repeat on that, what are you learning from that process? Because if you don't have a process, you don't learn, right? You just take market feedback as at its face. So when you're diving in with people and you're doing kind of that whiteboarding, what are some of the challenges that they're facing down in terms of revenue today? Like, are most companies that you're talking with, are they stable in that? Are they looking to grow, or is there issues? Are they looking to save customers? Any themes that you're finding?
Yeah, I'd say 9 out of 10 companies are looking to grow. And it's just finding the levers of growth, finding what areas they want to focus on to get there. Because if you think about growth, you can get in so many different ways. We need to understand whether it comes from existing business, whether it comes from an acquisition, whether if it comes from or through partners. Or I just had a call here right before this. They had 89% of their sales through distributors. You need to find these things out so that you can guide them and help them understand, like, how do you then work with distributors? What are the key components there that you've seen a success over the years? And what are some things that you're never going to do again? Help you avoid that, and build a process for how you maximize that partnership in that sense. From a sales perspective, I am so passionate about process and sales processes and account growth processes and prospecting cadences and processes, because it's almost like a checklist. If you think about it, it's almost like grocery shopping. If I don't have my grocery shopping list on a Friday afternoon when I'm getting all the stuff for a Taco Friday, I think 2 or 3 million Swedes every Friday have taco. I don't. Fun fact. I'm gonna miss out on the corn for my daughter. Like, she would go bananas literally if she don't have her corn. I would miss out the hot salsa for my partner. I would miss out the guacamole for myself. Like, I think of sales as it's just the most human thing. You could just miss out on things that a little checklist could help you avoid. And I guess that's just being a human being. You're doing mistakes over and over again. And I guess a sales process is all about, like, holding you damn accountable that you're not going to do it again. Don't you dare doing the same mistake over and again. So that's kind of my philosophy around process.
Yeah, you've been on a huge learning and sorry, Stacy, I turned my head. Our editor, Stacy, who's amazing, every time I turn my head or do something like that, and the audio goes, she's like, "Paul, there was a spot at 39 seconds in the that
To me, it doesn't
That's
matter. I can just.
anyways. I was going to say I was turning around to look at my book by Atomic Habits by James Clear, and you've been on this self, and one of the reasons we love to work together. You've been on this kick recently. Just you're downloading all this information. You're reading. You're getting better. But he's got a great quote in that book, which I'd highly recommend to everybody. Don't know James, but he writes a good book. Is you don't rise to the levels of your talents, you fall to the levels of your systems. And so when I think of sales process, when I think of companies that do that, they have risen as far as they go with a level of, maybe their top salesperson, right? They get 80% of their business from their top salesperson, but they don't have a system that continually enables others to be able to activate at near or at the levels of that top salesperson. So they're completely reliant. So you take that to your personal side as well, in terms of how you sell, in terms of how you operate your family, in terms of what you do. Like, what are your favorite things that you kind of systemize in your life other than sales?
I love Atomic Habits. I resonate a lot with that book, and I'm going to tell you a quick story. I went on a presentation, and I really resonated with this presenter. He was a doctor, and he had a obese patient, and they were having coaching conversations on, like, a lot of her health issues was because obesity. So they were discussing on what are some things that they can introduce to have her lose some weight and therefore reduce a few of the issues she were facing. So they agreed to have her go to the gym 3 times until next time they met. And she came back 1 week later, and the doctor asked, "Hey, how was hitting the gym?" And she didn't went. And he then, okay, so I got to try something else. And until next time they were going to meet, he asked her to do 10 squats at home. So the next time she came back, she had done 50 squats. So I really resonated with that, because the level they set when they set 3 times go to the gym, well, yeah, I gotta find out which clothes I'm gonna wear. I'm gonna find out when I'm gonna have time and day to go to the gym. Oh, I have kids. I gotta maybe cook or clean or do some other things at home. So how the heck am I gonna get time for that? But when they changed the mindset to, hey, you're gonna do 5 or 10 squats at home. Can you figure that out until next time we meet? And she just ripped that goal and just crushed it. And I really liked that philosophy. And I actually, from that presentation, because I had a dip in my exercise and workout, so I bought some weights and put next to my coffee machine. So when I did my morning coffee, I'm going to do 3 sets of 10 just with the weights. So I started doing that, and that just sat with me to get this, like, Atomic Habits. For me, it was a no-brainer to go do some biceps curls. And then it started to get fun, and then I started to kind of push myself to go to the gym, and I set a low level of 1 or 2 times a week, and I did 4 all of a sudden. So it's like, for me, it's like, don't push yourself too hard on the goals kind of things, but set a level that you're comfortable with hitting, and you're gonna see how freaking fun it is hitting that number, and you want to do better for yourself and for your family and all that. So to give you a short answer, I even downloaded some app. I'm not going to show exactly what I have here, but I even have a checklist with, hey, one is reducing my handicap in golf. One is actually reading 6 books this year, but I've broken that down as well to 10 pages a day, because anyone can read 10 pages a day. So I'm off to a huge rant here, but it's that simple to me. It's a checklist. And for me, sales is exactly the same. If I just follow my checklist and doing my best at every checklist that I'm following, including all the people that I need to meet with, asking the right questions, I'm having better luck in what I do.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call it luck, right? You're creating your own creating the outcomes by controlling the controllables, and that's one of the things I love in our coaching conversations, where you're like, okay, hey, quite frankly, Seb, I don't I don't need to coach you a ton. You can bring it all. You bring it to me, but it's like, hey, well, I'm thinking of doing this, and I'm going to measure it by this. Okay, that's great. And let's do it. How can I help? And I think that's one of the biggest things I think people get really hung up on in terms of sales process and sales process control and all those things. We need to start with progress, not perfection. I think is what kind of sums up is you need to be able to give your team, minimal, powerful direction that drives things forward, that drives things forward, but then leave them the room to innovate within that. Do you find that a lot of magic happens? I just look at your pipeline over the course of the last, you were out for 9 months on baby daddy duty, right? And then you're able to come back and it was just habits. Let's rebuild the pipeline. Let's get in. We're going to keep doing things one step at a time. And there was a point in there, even when you were getting a little bit discouraged, you're like, man, there's not a whole lot going on. And then boom. I think people forget is those actions over time, those minimal small actions over time, they don't always necessarily show up like you're making improvements right away. Sometimes you just have to keep doing them and persevere until it comes out the other side.
Yeah. And refine that process a little bit every time. Never stop doing. And I like the word progress that you just mentioned. If you can just increase progress a little bit, you're going to see some drastic results over time. The best habit, I haven't, I can't call it a habit no longer, but when I really, really was frustrated with how my sales result was reflected, what I could perform, I started to look at every sales call that I had on a sales recording. I checked off before the meeting, is it okay if I record this? And today it's like a standard because all these AI note takers want to be in that call. But I did record and I did look at myself selling, having conversations, and it's the most horrible thing you can do. In my opinion, I hate looking at myself sitting there. And often I just tell myself, why can't you just shut up? But I guess there's also some kind of passion to it. So I like that about myself. But at the same time, like, come on, dude, shut up. But speaking of progress, what I did was that really have helped me the most in everything I've done in sales. I've had coaching, I had trainings, I had all these things. We have weekly things with Membrain and how we can get better in our roles and things like that. And we have our weekly sales calls, and you coach me, and we have these in-depth conversations about revenue and sales and partnerships and how we go about things. But if you watch a recording of yourself recently where you thought you had a good call, go in, have some fun, and write down one, maybe two things that you're never going to do again. Because you're going to find them. You can have some fun with it, have a beer, whatever. It's not a pleasant exercise, in my opinion, but it's a healthy one. When was the last time you looked at yourself selling, Paul? Is that something that you have had as a habit over your career?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. This actually, these podcasts are also a way that I do that. And I find that I ramble. And so longtime listeners, you know that I ramble. But I do. I find that I ramble, and sometimes my questions aren't pointed enough. And so when you start to think about, and I have a little checklist, when you start to think about those things, like have fun, don't ramble, ask questions, and you start to think about that before you go into the call, it preps you. It helps you perform better. It helps you be better. It helps you help the customer more. It helps you do a better podcast. It's actually one of the reasons why I developed this conversation methodology, which I really think is helpful and important. It's just as a reminder, right? We call ours vibe, vision, impacts, and issues, barriers, and execution. But that is really a reminder of where I am on the map and things to do and things not to do, right? It's it's super simple. It's,
Mm.
vision is where you want to go, and where you want to go. What are the problems that you're having, and what are the impacts you want to make? What's getting in your way, and how do we get there? I mean, it's that simple, right? And that kind of checklist in my head tends to keep me on pace, on path. And then when you can do a review of those things and go through and say, hey, am I actually helping this person? Are we actually getting to the goals? Was it a good call? Man, you're right. Now, I haven't had the beer and sat there and listened, because I would
That was a
probably
long
drink
time I did that. But,
I would drink myself into a stupor if I did it, because I would be making so many mistakes. But yeah, it's so
that's the fun
helpful.
part. It's the fun part about sales, that you can always improve. And you mentioned our acronym for our own methodology, VIBE there, the vision, the impacts, the barriers, and how we execute things. Everyone is probably following some kind of methodology in sales, and you're all at different stages at your sales profession and sales career, and how comfortable you are in a conversation. And I really struggled with, oh damn, which question should I ask next, or where am I in before we even had this methodology, before 7 years ago, when you were not a part of Membrain, for example. We had we called it the move process, and this is a fun thing. I don't even know if you know this, but the M stood for motivate, but what it was really supposed to be called was motivation. You need to find motivations early on in the process. But I thought it was, I'm going to motivate the client to buy. So I just thought that was just like how you frame things and how you position things. Yeah, that was a weird one. I think back of that sometimes, like how the hell could I not get that? But we're all at different stages. And what I'm saying with that is, like I mentioned, my way of looking at sales, and the definition of that is bridging a gap between where someone is and where they want to be. And in there is a gap, and the gap can be of different heights. But what questions do I ask on current state, for example? Well, today it's maybe more natural for me to really boil down those questions, but it hasn't always been like that. I have progressed, speaking of that word that you mentioned, and understood that, okay, so here are the 3 key things that I should understand here. So I write those down. But now it's more, it's in my spine, so to speak, to know how to kind of dive into those different topics. But it has not always been that clear, and I guess that's what repetition gives you. It's the mother of knowledge for a reason.
And this is just a comment on your progression. You've done a great job of internalizing, becoming more, being able to be you in sales calls, and bring your full self, instead of needing to be somebody that just asks a list of questions or tries to motivate, or those type of things. And that is a magical moment, right? And when you start to embrace, oh man, I can be me in these. And then, yeah, I do need to learn some stuff. There's a checklist to what I need to learn and what I need to do and how I need to operate, but I can do that as Seb. And I can do that well. I can do that with having fun too. And that comes through. You're able to converse. You're able to be in the moment. And I would urge any sales executive that's listened to this, do the work, do that type of work that Seb is doing, to give yourself that freedom. That is the freedom that you get when you start to internalize those habits, when you start to understand and do the small things, like looking at your sales calls and not beating yourself up over them, just saying, hey, what did I learn? Or putting down that checklist of and working with your sales leader or sales manager to build that sales process that actually works and it's repeatable and you can do it. Because it's a gift. It's a gift that you give yourself, to be able to show up prepared every time and be able to navigate tough situations. And you've done, tremendously well at that over the years. And it's been really,
I
really
had
cool to watch
that was
that growth.
actually a recommendation from a very senior sales rep that I looked up to. Have some fun, he said. You really need to try to have some fun.
Yeah.
And then that got even deeper with me, like, oh shit, should I even work with sales? Because I had a little dip and things like that. It was 4 or 5 years ago. But I realized that I need to make it fun. And I need to make it fun for those that are looking at a CRM that I've been selling for all these years. Because CRM is not very sexy. It's not very fun to talk about. But what if I could make it a little bit of fun? What if I could just bring fully Seb and just have a lot of fun? So I even, speaking of this little checklist, it's not there any longer because it's in my spine now. It's in my identity. But I'm gonna make you laugh. That was the thing that I had in my goal for the checklist. I'm gonna try and make them laugh. At least try. If I don't succeed, well, I tried.
Yeah.
And often you got a little laugh or something, but it was like just to get that spark again.
And not in a cheesy way either. It was like in a real way. Like, let's bring some joy to this. And yeah, it's been so cool. So we're gonna wrap up here, Seb. We could go on for hours. I'm gonna ask you one final question though before we wrap up.
Sure.
Let's take this from a sales executive perspective. What is the best thing that you're doing today to ensure you're staying stable, healthy, and moving forward in the sales profession?
Good question. I don't know if I'm going to be able to give you a good answer, but sometimes I ask myself, how do I know that I keep myself on track? And in my book, that is broken down into KPIs and metrics that hold me accountable, that I'm going to hold myself accountable to. But ask yourself, how do you know that you're on track?
Cool. That's great wisdom, everybody. From Sebastian Karlsson, thank you so much. How do people reach out to you if they want to
LinkedIn
talk
is
to you?
fine. I have a pretty common name, so just search for Sebastian and Membrain, Membrain. You'll find me. Happy to connect and chat.
And he does have hair in his LinkedIn picture.
Yeah, I can't fool you on this recording, but well, maybe Stacy can. Stacy, please do some editing for me.
Seb's gonna come with the full Donald Trump flow.
I reversed mohawk.
All right, everybody. Hey, on that, keep shining bright. Have an amazing day. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Art and Science of Complex Sales. And as always, we'll talk to you soon. See you later.
Cheers. Bye.